Here's a great way to start your Monday, gang. Time for Knife Tales. Hi gang, Rob here. It is the morning of 26 August 2013, and yes, we have one of those historic blades to review today from that storied old company from Eibach, Switzerland, Victorinox. And the blade we're going to talk about is the Tinker. This specific Tinker in Shadowgrass Camo. And I'm going to do my first sort of detailed Victorinox review on the Tinker because it's a pretty common iteration of the full-size classic chassis. And by full size, I mean the 91mm frame with the old construction that most of us grew up with, which is the layered knife with fairly symmetrical scales, plastic scales. These knives built prior but still ongoing to the 2009 advent of the large chassis like the Swiss Army Tinker, the Rescue Knife, and the New Soldier. I chose to do the Tinker for two reasons. Number one, it's very common, has a very common set of tools, so it's a good way to get to know Swiss Army knives if you don't. And this is also one of my contest knives. This is going to be going after Labor Day to one of my subscribers who wins the contest. Let's talk a little bit about the history of the company. Victorinox, founded by Karl Elsner and I believe his brother Nicholas in Eibach, Switzerland in 1884. They started a little knife company, and by 1891 they became the sole supplier of issued knives to the Swiss Army. And they have been a continuous supplier of soldier knives to the Swiss Army ever since. So what does that make that? About 122 years. There was an interloper for some of those years, the Wenger Knife Company. In 2005, Victorinox took care of that by purchasing Wenger, and they produced both lines of knives concurrently from 2005 or 6 until this year, and then early this year, maybe late last year, they announced that the Wenger line of knives was going to be assimilated or killed by Victorinox, and the Victorinox Swiss Army knife is once again the sole knife supplied to the Swiss Army. How did we get the name Victorinox? Because I believe the company was called like the Elsner Knife Works or something when it was new. Well, in 1909, Karl Elsner's mother, Victoria, died, and he changed the name of the company to honor her. Pretty cool, huh? And then in 1921, a new material for making knife blades and other implements was developed. Stainless steel, or in the French, something like acier inoxydable. Acier inoxydable. So that became shortened by those in the trade to inox. So we had the Victoria Knife Works making their knives out of inox, stainless steel, and the name of the company changed in 1921 and has forever since been known as Victorinox, maker of Swiss Army knives. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Oh, here's another interesting fact. The company's still family owned by the Elsner family, still operating in Eibach, Switzerland. Excuse me. And they boast a pretty cool fact. Not many companies can say that have been around for 1¼ centuries or more. They have never had to lay off or fire an employee due to economic reasons. They've never had to shrink their workforce because they have planned responsibly with the welfare of those who make them successful in mind. So if you happen to be a young Swiss man or woman and you have the opportunity to go to work for Victorinox, rest assured that if you show up for work every day and do your job and you produce what you're supposed to produce, that company will take care of you. That's a bit of a foreign concept in today's world, isn't it? So guys, if you are a knife dude, or if you're sort of a casual knife observer and you'd like to maybe start a collection of a certain brand, your money is well spent and you are a good steward if you make that collection a Victorinox Swiss Army knife collection. What a great company. And what great knives they build. Now this particular model, this is the Tinker. And look at that. It has that Victorinox Swiss made stainless on the tang of the blade. See if you guys can read that. And then on the other side, that coolest of cool logos, Officier Suisse, the Swiss officer. Supposedly the Tinker would be one of those knives with that officer stamp in the tang of the blade that was the knife that went to the guys who are a little more advanced than the grunts. So let's talk specifically about why these knives are so cool. Yes, they use stainless steel. We're not quite sure what it is. Doesn't really matter. It is extremely rust resistant. It holds an edge okay for an everyday carry blade, but it's really easy to resharpen in the field. They come more than adequately sharp from the factory, and they're really easy to put a screaming edge on. And guys, you know, I've had about 10 or 12 of these myself over the years, and I've probably given another 10 or 12 as gifts. And you know, every time I give one for a gift, I sort of go through it, you know, put my edge on it and make sure everything is ship-shape. So in 20 or 25 knives that I've personally had pass through my hands over the years, I really can't remember a Victorinox knife that had an issue. And you know, a knife of this caliber, the Tinker range, is a $20, $25 knife. And they are precisely constructed, precisely finished, beautifully polished, working knives for under $25. And no Chinese hands touch them. Old world craftsmanship in a company that still makes them the old-fashioned way, but also stays current. I mean, look at the finish on this knife. This is a shadow grass camouflage, clearly aimed at the American market and the modern American market. I'm going to talk about why this finish exists other than marketing as we get into this. Let's talk about the implements first. Oh, I guess we have, what, about a 2 3/4 inch main blade, basically a large pen blade. Flat ground with an extremely thin edge grind. Don't need to put a compound bevel on these knives. They're so thin at the edge. You just, you know, sharpen them at 18 or 20 degrees per side, polish them up, and go on with life. And on the other side, we have the pen blade. Same shape, just smaller. I like to keep my pen blade super sharp and never use it, just in case for some reason my main blade would fail, like I broke it or something. That pen blade is always there. Then we get to the standard front of the knife tools. The excellent Victorinox can opener with also the small, what is that, a 3 or 4 millimeter flat blade screwdriver at the end. On the other side of the front, we have the large screwdriver, cap lifter, and wire bender. That's it for the front of the knife. On the back, large Phillips screwdriver in a T-handle configuration, very effective. And the reamer with sewing eye. Guys, you would be surprised how functional that tool is. On my Swiss Army knives, that's the tool I probably use more than any other. Maybe the large screwdriver, then the reamer. You need an extra hole in a belt. You need to make a knife sheath, whatever. This thing is unbelievable. And it's fairly sharp. And then, of course, we have our split ring for key ring or lanyard attachment. And then, of course, the famous Victorinox tweezers. And the toothpick. Never use the toothpick out of somebody else's Swiss Army knife, by the way. I've attached this lanyard, and I talked about this a little bit in my contest video. I keep this knife with me in my little hunting pack, and you'd be surprised up in a tree stand the things that you need to tweak, fix, repair, whatever. And this little guy comes in awfully handy. If I would happen to drop it on the forest floor, I can find it because of this. Now let's talk about this Camo Pattern. I've had a couple of these knives and given several as gifts. I live, of course, in Indiana, and deer hunting is rather huge here, and camo is kind of huge. Even before Duck Dynasty was on, camo was huge. Here's kind of the deal on this. It took me a couple to figure out what was going on, but notice how the finish on that camouflage is a little bit matte. That is sort of a rubbery coating. You know, it's sort of like these graphics that you see wrapped on vehicles for advertising purposes. This is an adhesive rubberized vinyl product of some kind, and if you notice, the Swiss Army Cross, don't know if the camera picks this up well, but it is, I guess you'd say, screen printed, or it's printed on top of the camouflage overlay. And then if you flip the knife over, this is where you normally see the crest on the front scale toward the end with the can opener. Now if you flip this knife over, you may have a little bit of a hard time seeing this. I don't know if I get the light just right. Underneath the overlay, you will see the outline, the imprint of the inlaid aluminum crest underneath the camo. It's on every one of these knives. What does that tell you? It tells you that the camouflage or other overlay pattern knives sold by Victorinox are done on mistake scales. Scales that had the cross put in the wrong side. I would imagine eventually that camo coating might wear off and that cross might become more visible, but it's there, trust me. What a great way to minimize cost and bring to market a product that is going to have some serious appeal. You know, why throw all those scales away when you can throw some camouflage on there and sell them by the millions to American buyers? Great business, guys. It really is. Let's talk about performance. You know, how do these little knives handle? Well, they're just exactly the right size for EDC tasks. They have zero side-to-side play, and these guys are a layered, riveted together with brass rivets knife. I've really never seen one get loose, tell you the truth. They are what they are. They're great little blades. You can throw these in your pocket or your pack. You've always got them. As you guys probably know, my most commonly carried knife that's always in the bottom of my pocket is my Alox scaled silver Cadet, and that knife comes out to turn screws more than I go to my toolbox for a screwdriver, guaranteed. And of course a Tinker or another similar variant would serve just as well. And the neat thing about Victorinox knives, not only are they useful, but you can collect them on a budget. You know, ranging usually between $20 and $60. You know, you can spend more on a Victorinox, of course. when you get into some of the limited edition or the Swiss Champ models with hundreds of tools, you can spend more money. But generally, $20 to $60 per collectible piece. What a great way to have a cool little collection of stuff. This one is not going to be with me much longer, about another week. It's going to find its way to a lucky subscriber who happens to have his name drawn out of the contest hat. Thought you'd like to see it before it leaves? Grace to you and peace, my friends, from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the Word is sharp.